The House will come to order. And this morning, members, we are privileged to have the bel canto singers from Montrose, Colorado, Montrose High School, and they will sing the national anthem for us. That was inspiring. Thank you very much. And the Bel Canto Singers will now lead us in the pledge.
Please join us.
Mr. Kohler, please call the roll.
Representatives Arndt. Becker J. Becker K. excused. Brown. Buck. Buckner. Carver. Conti. Okay, oh. Present. Quorum. Court. Representative Court. Court.
Representative Court excused.
Danielson. Del Grosso. Dorr. Duran. Esgar. Everett. Fields. Foote. Garnett. Janal. Hamner. Humphrey. Joshi. Kagan. Kaiser. Klingenschmidt. Kraft-Tharp. Landgraf. Lawrence. Lebsock. Lee. Representative Court is present. Lontine. Lundeen. McCann. Melton. Mitch Bush. Moreno. Representative Moreno? Yeah.
Representative Moreno excused.
Navarro. Neville. Okay. Representative Moreno is present. Nordberg. Pabon. Pedersen. Primavera. Priola. Rankin. Ransom. Rosenthal. Rupe. Ryden. Sane. Representative Sane.
Representative Sane excused.
Salazar. Zayas. Singer. Tate. Thurlow. Tyler. Van Winkle. Vigil. Willett. Williams. Wilson. Windholes. Winter. Young. Good. Madam Speaker.
Here. With 63 present, 2 excused, a quorum is present. Representative Lundeen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the reading of the Journal of Thursday, March 12, 2015 be dispensed with and that it be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
You have heard the motion that the journal be adopted as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Let's make it
All
unanimous.
those in favor say aye. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is passed. Announcements and introductions, Representative Quorum. I'm reserving a spot here for Representative Quorum.
Thank you, Madam
All right,
Speaker.
there you go. Please proceed.
Thank you. Members, I would I have talked to the speaker, I would like to present a tribute this morning. And I would ask that Mr. Kohler read it, please.
Would you give me just 1 minute, Mr. Kohler? Thank you. Could we please have order for a tribute? Please proceed, Mr. Kohler.
State of Colorado, the House of Representatives, convened in the 70th General Assembly, hereby extends sincere commendations to Cheryl Pinney Liu. Since 1995, Montrose High School choir director Cheryl Pinney Liu has been opening up the world of music to her students. For many years, Ms. Pinney Liu and her students have also ventured across the state to showcase their talents at the state capitol. The members of the Colorado House of Representatives are proud to recognize and thank Cheryl Pinney Liu for all of her work with and for the students of Montrose, and especially for making music a part of so many lives. We wish her success and happiness in all of her future endeavors. On request of Representative Don Coram, given this 13th day of March, 2015, State Capitol, Denver.
Representative Coram.
Thank you, members. I want to just tell you how proud I am of this group. This group started in Montrose in 1971. I believe Cheryl is the second director of the program. David Bogus, another friend of mine, started the program in 1971. My son was a member of this for his 4 years in high school. And, you know, the leadership, the hard work, the dedication that this group learned through that. You know, we have volleyball coaches, we have school teachers, we have lawyers. You know, one of the also members of this 1985 group was our own director of DNR, Mike King. Now, so just to let you know, as DNR director, that's not the first sour note that Mike has given. So, but it's a great group. They're very well thought of throughout all of Western Colorado, and they've made this trip for I don't know how many years to entertain you here at the Capitol, and thank you so much for giving them such a big welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Pinney Liu. It's obvious from what we heard this morning that you do a magnificent job. Thank you very much. Further announcements and introductions. Representative Primavera.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. For members of Public Health Care and Human Services, we are meeting upon adjournment today, but we will not be hearing House Bill 1242.
Representative Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, today is a very important day at the Capitol. It is the HD2 day at the Capitol. We have a group of members from my district who are some of the strongest community activists and who do everything they can to make sure that the residents in HD2 are engaged in our democracy. So I want to take a moment to thank them. And then I also want to thank the youngest and probably the rising star of the group, Santina Busick, who is a 5th grader from Southmore Elementary School. So thank you so much for being here.
Representative Rosenthal and Representative Kraft. Okay. Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, the only thing better than one Rosenthal is two Rosenthals. And we have my dad in the house, and I'd like to thank him for coming all the way from California. And this is Isidore Rosenthal. He is a U.S. Army veteran, and he worked for over 20-something years as a civilian for the U.S. Army and the U.S. Air Force. So let's welcome my dad, Isidore Rosenthal, to the House.
Madam Majority Leader, and then Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Mr. Rosenthal, I just want you to know how much we cherish your son and all the good work that he does down here. He has a great heart and really does a lot of wonderful work for the state of Colorado. So thank you.
Representative Kraft Tharp.
So thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't know if I can top that. However, I'm going to try. I want to welcome the DU Women's College. The Colorado Women's College was formed in 1988 as a place for women throughout the Rocky Mountain region to achieve a higher education. This is one of only 46, yes, you heard me correctly, only 46 women's colleges in the United States and Canada, and the only women's college directly serving undergraduate women who live and work in Colorado. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming down with today.
Representative Kraftharp, that's a $2 fine, but I'm glad you welcomed the DU Women's College. Thank you. Are there further announcements? Oh, yes, Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I would ask that we all welcome the Mayor Pro Tem of Durango, Colorado, Dean Brookie, if you would stand.
Are there further announcements and introductions? Seeing none, members, the next order of business is General Order, second reading of bills, and I will just tell you in advance, we are awaiting a first responder resolution from the Senate, and when that occurs, we will rise and report and beg leave sit again so that we can recess for that and then come back and finish our second reading so we don't have to wait around on the Senate for very long. So anyway, we are now in General Order, second reading of bills. Representative Salazar.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House resolve itself to the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders.
You have heard the motion. If there are no objections, Representative Salazar will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee amendments will not be read unless requested, as they are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads and not read unless requested. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the majority leader. The court rule is Mr. Kohler relaxed. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1240.
House Bill 1240 by Representative Fields concerning reducing law enforcement contacts with public school students and disciplinary responses to school incidents.
Representative Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move House Bill 1240 and the committee report.
Thank you, Representative Fields. To the committee report.
The committee report. Members, basically what happened within the committee report, we took page 3 and we striked unnecessary student contact and we substituted with referrals to students to law enforcement. I urge an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report. Those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Committee report passes. Representative Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this bill does a couple things. It's very simple. It encourages collaboration between law enforcement and student personnel at the school. So it encourages a dialogue. If we have SROs in our schools, it encourages that there is some kind of engagement plan in place to reduce the number of arrests that are taking place in our schools for low, minor misbehavior. So I urge an aye vote on this bill, House Bill 1240.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Fields, I listened to some of the testimony on this and reading through the bill. I guess my question for you would be, can't the school districts do this already? So is there something that is getting in the way from districts doing this now, and that if this passes, they'll be able to do something now or after the bill passes that they can't do already?
Representative Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that question. Yes, basically, we do have several schools that are already operating under an MOU, which is a Memorandum of Understanding. And what we've seen when schools enter into an MOU with a school, we see that there's been a reduction in misbehaviors as it relates to law enforcement coming in and having to arrest students. But what I'm trying to do with this bill is trying to encourage across the state that if you have an SRO in your school, that you plan to have an MOU so that you can encourage a plan of engagement when police are in your schools. Now, what this is about, like when I was in school, girls would be girls, boys would be boys. And so sometimes when you see horseplay happening in schools, it would just be handled by a counselor. It would be handled by a principal. It would be handled by the dean of students. Now what you have oftentimes is you'll have some misbehavior going on, and the police might intervene, and then you have a young person wrapped up, maybe being put into the criminal justice system. And so there's research that says if you have an MOU and you have plans of engagement, it can minimize the opportunities for law enforcement being engaged in behavior where law enforcement shouldn't be there. So that's what this bill is all about. It's about reducing law enforcement contact in our schools. We're trying to avoid police being involved with low-level misbehavior. So once again, I urge a yes vote on House Bill 1240.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1240? Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Fields. Representative Fields, as a point of clarification, what would be a misbehavior that police would intervene that would put the students into the law enforcement system? Because in my experience, when we called the police, we had a serious incident. It wasn't a misbehavior. What would constitute a misbehavior?
Representative Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that question. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're in the cafeteria and you have two kids fighting over a bag of chips. And so in fighting over that bag of chips, you'll have someone will snatch the bag of chips, and let's say the student falls and gets pushing, shoving, those kinds of things. That could be considered assault. You could be walking down the hall, all of a sudden someone pushes someone, shoves someone, and someone gets hurt. Not really seriously, but they're doing horseplay in the school. And all of a sudden, that child is going to have to face assault charges. So what normally would have been something in my day, which would be considered misbehavior in school, now could be considered assault charges, which I think a school disciplinary person can get involved and maybe do something that's along the lines of restorative justice and teaching kids how to handle and problem solve without involving the police.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Fields, for that clarification. And colleagues, just so you'll understand, I struggle with this bill because there is a divide between schools that have SROs and schools that do not have SROs. Having been in a school that did not have an SRO, when we called the police, we needed the police. And that leads into my second question. Representative Fields is one of the few in this chamber that read one of those MOUs. And looking through it, as I understand the MOU,
Just one moment,
cannot.
Representative Wilson. Members, just keep your, let's talk in our quiet voices. And just listen to Representative Wilson. Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I found in education there ain't no such animal as a quiet voice. But in looking at the MOU and understanding law enforcement, as I understand it, we cannot limit law enforcement if they are on campus and they witness an incident that they take action. We can't limit that. Is that correct? Even though we say, well, that was really mischief and just pushing and shoving, I would interpret that as a building administrator is pushing and shoving and wouldn't call the police. But if an SRO witnesses that and he considers it to be assault, I don't think these MOUs say the law enforcement officials have to check with administration before they can intervene as a law enforcement officer. Is that correct?
Representative Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question, Representative Wilson. The conversation that we're trying to develop at the schools is between law enforcement and the administration of the schools. Officers always have discretion as to how to charge or not to charge, and that is within their broad discretion. So when we generate this dialogue, which would lead to a memorandum of understanding, there will be discussions about what types of offenses are appropriate, what type of conduct is appropriate for charging and for not charging. So I think what we're trying to do is get that dialogue started or encourage on a voluntary basis school districts who want to do it to engage in that dialogue to decide when the officer is going to exercise that discretion, and the school administration can talk to the officer about situations that they do not feel are appropriate for exercise of the officer's discretion to charge. What we do know, as a matter of fact, is that if kids are charged and get involved with the law enforcement system in the schools, their likelihood of being expelled, suspended, and dropping out increases proportionally. What we're attempting to do is to keep kids in school, reduce these dropout rates, and to encourage the schools to develop alternative forms of dispute resolution within the schools, such as peer mediation, such as restorative justice. We know when schools use these alternative forms of dispute resolution that kids learn those skills, have those skills, and will continue to utilize those techniques in the future so that when disputes arise, they won't end up having an escalation where they will be charged. So the officers always have that discretion, and they don't have to listen to the administration, but creating that dialogue, creating that understanding goes a long way towards reducing the number of kids who become involved in the criminal justice system. We know, too, statistically, that kids who become involved in the criminal justice system stay involved in the criminal justice system and, again, are less likely to stay in school. So this is a bill to try to reduce kids getting involved with law enforcement. Thank you.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Lee. And I certainly don't disagree with that. The conflict resolution and that sort of thing is critical to keeping our young people out of that pipeline. But my point is, number one, we can already do the MOUs. We don't need the bill to do that. Number two is, it doesn't matter what we do with the MOUs, because once you have the SRO, you lose touch with that option. For example, I know Representative Fields and I know Representative Lee, and I see them getting in a scuffle in the lunchroom. I know those students. So as a building administrator, even though that may escalate and get kind of violent, I can call you in and say, hey, kids, come on. If the law enforcement officer, the SRO, witnesses that, it doesn't matter. If he or she decides that that is an assault issue, he doesn't know your parents like I do. He doesn't know the background. He doesn't know that one of your siblings was dating the other one's sibling and that went south and that's what the fight was really. They don't know that. They just see the assault. They have to, and I don't think, and that's my question, is there anything in the agreement, the MOU agreement, that says the SRO has intervened because it was an assault and they say, oops, sorry, I didn't realize that that was over a boyfriend-girlfriend incident? That's my concern. I agree with all the other things because those things do work. They do work, but it takes that initiative, and that's the problem that we have across the state with those districts who are affluent enough to have an SRO. That's a good news, bad news. You have an SRO, and that's good news for the safety of the students in those incidents we need them. But the bad news is we don't have the option any longer as an administrator, and I don't see that the MOU is going to give the officer the option of saying, I'm witnessing a misdemeanor or a felony, and I don't have to intervene because Mr. Wilson's going to come down and take care of it. I don't see that. Is that true? I don't see that that's a part of it.
For rebuttal, Representative Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the points you raised. Again, I go back to the officer discretion. Officers exercise their discretion every day on hundreds and hundreds of incidences, and an officer in consultation with school administration pursuant to a memorandum of understanding will exercise discretion. He may see an incident which under other circumstances may appear to be an assault, but having a understanding, a collaborative working relationship with the school administration may dissuade him from engaging in that ticket writing process. So it's just a matter of the officer exercising discretion, and they will do that if they have these cooperative relationships. And if they don't want to develop those memorandums of understanding, there's nothing mandatory and compulsory about this bill. It's purely a voluntary thing that the schools can do or not do. I would like to have each school with a clone of Administrator Wilson making those decisions and helping them. But this is the only alternative we have to reduce law enforcement contacts in the schools.
Representative Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I applaud Representative Fields for bringing this bill. It's a great conversation. It's an important item to be discussing. The idea of trapping students into a pathway that would be inappropriate for them is certainly something we don't want. But the reality is the conversation is beneficial, but the legislation is not necessary. Currently, the most compelling testimony I heard in committee was in fact from a school district that is doing this of their own volition. They don't need the legislation in order to do it. Denver Public Schools in 2003 developed an intergovernmental agreement, an MOU to deal with this. In 2012, they revised it and improved it, and the result they're getting is positive. So the information there is in fact good, but the reality is it's happening without the need of state legislation to do this in a state where local control is a constitutional aspect of education. So the conversation is valid, the desires of the legislation are appropriate, but this pathway is an incomplete or an unnecessary pathway. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
For rebuttal, Representative Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Lundin. Again, this is not mandatory. It's not required that any school district enter into it. And you've been here long enough to know that we pass legislation all the time that isn't totally, completely necessary in order to accomplish what we want. And I can tell you from my experience with restorative justice 4 years ago, one of the arguments against passing the bill for restorative justice is, aren't there places where they're doing restorative justice around the state? And I said, absolutely, there are. It is a very good practice that is working in school districts, in juvenile justice facilities, and district attorneys are using. However, by passing a restorative justice bill, which was voluntary, as this bill is voluntary, we put the imprimatur, the seal of approval of the state legislature. We are telling the people in the school districts around the state that we think these are a good idea. We suggest and encourage you to consider doing this. We support this as a best practice. You don't have to do it, but we think it's a worthwhile thing to do. What we found with restorative justice when we passed that bill is restorative justice programs proliferated all around the state, and I had people come to me and say, thank you for that legislation. It gave us the argument to use with our people locally that this is a good thing to do. I would suggest the same argument applies with the memorandums of understanding to encourage a best practice.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would just echo what Representative Fields and Representative Lee have said. I think it's important to note that with the amendment in the Education Committee, we're trying to reduce referrals to law enforcement through the schools. And I think that we have seen a proliferation of more criminal charges coming out of events in schools that used to be considered something the school would handle. So by saying to school districts, we are encouraging this dialogue where the school district administrator sits down with, or the school principal sits down with the SRO and they talk about what's happening. I think, unfortunately, a lot of times school principals and vice principals don't actually talk to the SROs about these issues because they just feel like that's law enforcement, they know what they're doing, we're not really involved. But I think if they can sit and chat about, when is it appropriate to actually initiate a criminal referral, that will really help in the communication and in reducing the number of children who actually referred for criminal prosecution. So I would urge an aye vote on this bill. Although it's not mandatory, I think it does send a message that we really support more of a dialogue and more consideration as to when is it appropriate to actually refer a child to criminal law prosecution. Thanks.
Representative Buckner.
I also come down in support of this bill. The reason being that when two public entities with distinct responsibilities combine to work together within one organization, it appears to me to be necessary to have some parameters established around which there's agreement on how they're going to operate. Having been a high school principal and having an SRO officer, and not having those parameters well established before we started, it didn't work as smoothly as it should have. And we intervened because we have different responsibilities. I saw them as being there for safety of the students. They saw themselves as being law enforcement. When we negotiated that and decided that schools would be responsible for school discipline and would refer to police officers when there were criminal activity uncovered, and police officers would allow that to happen, we were much better off in controlling the kinds of overlap that we see as problems now. This law is necessary because I don't think that automatically two distinct public service organizations with different responsibilities work well in one setting. So I would say a memorandum of understanding is an important aspect of having those organizations work well together.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Lee, I think we've passed a restorative justice bill for almost every year since I've been here. So I agree that restorative justice has proliferated around the state, but I think it's a result of several different pieces of legislation passing, and that is why it wasn't from the legislature passing something that says, gosh, we would like you to do something. And I believe the first one that came through was more of a direction to the court to say, hey, look, court system, please start taking a look at this. But I'm going back to your comment that says we pass bills all the time that are not necessary. Well, exactly. And that doesn't mean it's the right thing to do to pass a bill that is not necessary. Now, I get the underlying of, yes, we don't want to have law enforcement involved in the lives of our young people. We want to have that happen as little as possible. And that is a good thing. But this bill, basically saying, gosh, guys, please get along and be nice, that to me is more of a resolution. Please get along. Let's have a resolution. But to pass a bill, to put something in the statute books that are back there, to put one more thing into law, that, by the way, isn't even a law. It's basically just a letter to folks to say, gosh, please get along. And that is all I see this bill is nothing more than doing. I get we're trying to do a good thing. I applaud the effort, but I do not believe this bill actually does anything.
Representative Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, this bill is necessary and it's also critical. I can tell you why. As we know, the state of Colorado, our economy is booming. We're one of the fastest growing as it relates to job growth. And if we want to prepare and grow our own to make sure that our kids are ready to take their places in some of these jobs, then we need to protect their future. And the way we can protect their future is making sure that we have three things in place: communication, collaboration, and have a cultural shift in our schools that's not overly policed. What the MOU would do would encourage dialogue between law enforcement and school personnel. That's all it does. It encourages collaboration and communication. Why would someone argue that that's not necessary? That's critical, especially if we want to make sure that our youth and our kids are prepared to take their places in jobs in the future. Because once you get caught up in that system and you have a misdemeanor, or if you get some kind of felony charge and you want to go to school, that's going to impede their ability to be successful. This is about communication. This is about collaboration, and this is about partnership between school personnel and law enforcement. That they come together and they have an understanding about how to proceed when it's dealing with behavior in the schools. I think that that's common sense to require a conversation. So once again, I urge a yes vote on House Bill 1240.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, the key here, if I understand it, Representative Fields, is to reduce referrals. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, is reduce referrals. I think that's our goal. And when Representative McCann said, well, a lot of times administrators don't talk to the SROs and so forth, that may be true in larger districts, but in small districts where we don't have SROs, we talk to Officer Gallegos, we talk to Officer Weibel, we talk to Chief Clark, we talk to Officer Blades, and we talk about what incidents that we'd like to have them intervene upon if we're not there. If we're there, that's a different issue. So that's not an SRO agreement, that's simply communication, as we talked about. And Representative Buckner, you heard an excellent presentation here, colleagues, by Representative Buckner talking about how he dealt with that he had those conversations with his SROs, clarified what the issues would be that he wanted them to intervene as law enforcement. That's what we already do. That's what the statute already does. And with the new bill that we're getting ready to vote upon here, there's still no mandate to it. It's still, you may do this. Good administrators do it. So good administrators simply talk about what is discipline, what is a crime, and they have that agreement up front. They don't need an MOU, they have that agreement. You can actually put that into an MOU and have that type of agreement. That's still optional, and it's still optional under the new bill. Nothing changes. And when Representative Fields talked about the three things that we wanted was communication, which we're talking about here, collaboration, we're talking about that, that's what Representative Buckner was doing. But the third piece, I think, is the key to this. We don't want our schools to be over-policed. So the challenge is, do you want an SRO in your building or don't you want an SRO in the building? Because there's no MOU that can change the fact that they are wearing the badge, they're law enforcement. If they witness a crime, misdemeanor or felony, they are duty-bound to intervene. The MOU will not make a difference on that, nor do I think any police officer in the state of Colorado would sign an MOU that would say, I will not fulfill my duty as a law enforcement officer. So the bill changes nothing. The key is, as you said, Representative Field, I totally agree. Communication, just like Representative Buckner was talking about, sits down with his SROs, clarifies that issue. The bill does not mandate cooperation. It just says you may do it. It changes nothing. Nothing changes over the present statute. I don't believe this one's necessary because it doesn't change the present statute. Thank you.
Representative Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, once again, what the MOU does is formalizes that conversation. It puts a framework around engagement. This is a good thing to do. We don't need to be over-policing in our schools. We need to have a framework. This is being done successfully in Aurora Public Schools, in Denver Public Schools, in Jefferson County Schools, and Douglas County Schools. Many of them are already operating under an MOU. And they're doing some great work as it relates to reducing referrals to law enforcement. In fact, I heard from a story about what's going on in Douglas County and Jefferson County and what they've done to reduce referrals to law enforcement. They are implementing more restorative justice practices, because what they're trying to do is to have students and other people involved with, do you understand the behavior you just demonstrated and how that impacted someone without involving the police? So what this MOU is just an opportunity to develop a baseline of partnership, communication, and collaboration. That's all it does. And I think that's the right thing that we should be doing across our state. Please vote yes on House Bill 1240.
Representative Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, 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 and no. Yes on communication, yes on collaboration, yes on cooperation, no on the bill. An unnecessary expansion of the words in the law books at the back of this room and in every law office and courthouse across the state, but unnecessary to achieve the first three C's that we just talked about: communication, collaboration, and cooperation. I urge a no vote on the bill.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1240? Yes, Representative Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Fields, I appreciate your praise of Douglas County. And Douglas County has done some great things in this school district, and they've done that without the state telling them that they have to do it. So I would encourage a no vote, because we can do this on our own, and we don't need further state involvement in our county education.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1240? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1240. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No! House Bill 1240 passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 103 until Monday, March 16th.
You heard the motion. Seeing no objections, Senate Bill 103 will be laid over. All right, Mr. Kohler, Mr. Kohler, Mr. Kohler, Mr. Kohler. Please read the title of House Bill 1214.
House Bill 1214, Representative Singer, all Senator Cook, concerning opioid analgesics with abuse deterrent properties. I want
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1214. I can't even pronounce bill correctly today. House Bill 1214, the Abuse Deterrent Opioid Analgesic Drug Bill, and the Public Health and Human Services Committee report.
Thank you, Representative Singer. To the committee report.
Thank you, members. The committee report changed the nature of this bill. Originally, the idea behind this bill was to require some parity between generics and this new abuse deterrent formulary. Seeing as this is a new technology, what the committee asked is that the Colorado Consortium on Prescription Drug Abuse Prevention take a look at this and come back to the General Assembly with some thoughtful recommendations next year. I do have an amendment, L005, to the committee report, and I move that and ask that it be displayed.
Thank you. The amendment is, well, not yet. Thanks, sir. The amendment is properly before us. Please proceed and displayed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, what this does is changes one word. Originally, the governor had convened a group to start the consortium on prescription drug abuse prevention, but the group itself is actually called the Colorado Consortium on Prescription Drug Abuse, not the governor's consortium on prescription drug abuse. So I ask everyone's permission to change the word governor to the name Colorado. We can all agree on the word Colorado, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L005? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L005 to the committee report. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Oh. L005 passes. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At least we know one person here doesn't quite have their Colorado pride in order today, but that's okay. With that, I have one more technical change to the
Representative Singer, no impugning the character of Representative Melton.
Oh, I
we could
didn't
do that
name
on
names.
Saturdays. Okay. Go ahead, Representative Singer.
Thank you. I'll remember that, and I appreciate the correction. With that, I have one more technical amendment that was brought to me by the community health, by the insurance health plans. With that, I move Amendment L006 to the committee report and ask that it be displayed.
The amendment is properly before us, properly displayed. Please proceed, Representative Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is actually a timing issue, and originally the bill would have gone into effect on January 1 and then requested that the governor's consortium, the Colorado Consortium of Prescription Drug Abuse Prevention would have had to have made recommendations within 16 days. This puts a safety clause on this, so this goes into effect immediately so the Colorado Consortium can proceed as quickly as possible and give this consortium more than 16 days to contemplate this important issue. And with that, I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L006? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L006. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. L006 passes. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad there's a few members here that have belief in the Colorado Consortium to consider these things within 16 days, but I'm glad the amendment passed. And with that, I move the committee report as amended and ask for a favorable vote.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report. Those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The committee report passes as amended. To the bill, Representative Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do have a visual aid that I ask that it be displayed. I received permission from the majority leader on this one. Oh, it looks a little fuzzy. This is what happens after you ingest the opioids. There we go. So, Mr. Chair and members, basically what this bill is about is making sure that we protect our kids and those who have a proclivity towards drug abuse. Right now, there's a new technology out there that basically allows opiate-type drugs to be put into tamper-resistant formulations. And what this does is it means that you can't crush it, which means you can't snort it, which means you can't inject it, which means that if you or someone you know gets a back injury and already has a problem abusing drugs, or if you're a parent and you have teens that are living in the home and the teens are bringing friends into the home, they won't be able to steal that bottle of legally appropriated medicine and crush it and turn it into something that, that will produce an immediate high. So because this is a new technology, I brought this to the committee and actually brought a hammer, brought a pill, and for those of you got to see the show and tell, this is something that at least this Boulder County representative can't crush. And even with an industrial process, it crushes something basically into the form of a Skittle instead of a powder. And it's impossible to boil and then put into a syringe for injectable purposes. We all know that prescription drug abuse is on the rise. Colorado has done a great job through the Colorado Consortium in our efforts with the prescription drug management program, but there's more we can do. And with this bill and with the amendments that were put on, the best minds will be able to put their heads together to make sure that our teens are not abusing these drugs, that people with back injuries won't be developing drug addiction issues in the same way that we've seen in other cases, and we can get rid of this black market for what should be a legal prescription drug. And with that, I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1214? Yes, Representative Ransom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question for the sponsor. What about people that need to crush drugs because they can't swallow pills? I know plenty of people in that situation.
Representative Singer.
No. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Ransom, that's actually a really good question. This is about putting more things on the table. This would not eliminate any of the actual generics that we currently have, but it would put another, put another pill on the table, so it's literally and figuratively in this case. What happens is, what happened with the original bill is the idea was to create some cost parity between the two. And we recognize that there may be some consumer issues with that and driving up insurance costs. And so the consortium is going to be figuring this out. This would not preclude existing generics from being prescribed, but the idea is to give patients the choice, if they know that they have a drug problem, to say, you know what, I want the time-release capsule, but I want it in the tamper-proof version, so I don't feel the temptation to crush something up. Or, you know what, I've got teens at home, and when they're bringing friends home, I'm not, I don't want them rifling through my medicine cabinet and taking something from me. This is a new technology. It's not going to replace the current technology, but it's there to supplement it. And so I hope that answers your question.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1214? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1214. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 1214 passes. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to Senate Bill 19.
Senate Bill 19 by Senators Sonnenberg and John, also Representative Nordberg, concerning the authority of the state auditor to conduct a performance audit of the Colorado Health Benefit Exchange.
Representative Norberg.
Gracias, Jefe Salazar. I move Senate Bill 19, and there is no committee report.
De nada, Representante Nordberg.
Thank you, members. Senate Bill 19 is a legislative audit committee bill, and it passed out of that committee unanimously following a limited performance audit of Connect for Health Colorado, which highlighted a number of deficiencies and questionable expenditures. If this bill passed, it would authorize the Office of the State Auditor the ability to conduct a broad and comprehensive performance audit. Now, what does that look like? Well, the Auditor's Office would specifically be able to look at the extent to which the health exchange is fulfilling its statutory purpose, the efficiency, effectiveness of operations, performance measures, the exchange website, governance, security controls, as well as sustainability. But at its core, this bill is about transparency and accountability to the people of Colorado. We owe it to them to ensure appropriate controls are in place and that we're being good stewards of their taxpayer dollars. And that's what we should do today. This bill passed the Senate unanimously, and I would ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 19? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 19. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Senate Bill 19 passes. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1245.
House Bill 1245 by Representative Vigil, also Senator Sonnenberg, concerning the authority of the State Board of Land Commissioners to use a specified portion of the Investment and Development Fund monies for asset maintenance.
Representative Vigil.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1245. There is no committee report.
There is a committee report. There is no committee report. Okay,
There is
to
no
the
committee
bill,
report.
Representative Vigil.
Thank you. House Bill 1245 is a department bill for the Department of Revenue, Department of Natural Resources. It's a bipartisan bill by myself and Senator Sonnenberg. What the bill does, it simply changes the use of how they can finance their properties. Their properties are $2 billion, be with $1 billion in assets, and over the years, they've had to, because of floods and because of the they have not been able to work on their deferred maintenance projects. They needed to have a new financing way, and so it sounds like it's a lot of money. It's 1.75 million. However, it's when you compare that to the total assets of $2 billion, it's less than 2% or 2% of thereabout of the total assets. They're not mandated to spend the $2 billion. I mean the 1.75 million. And with that, I'll take any questions that are out there.
Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, the State Land Board does do a great job managing these lands, and it's to the great benefit of our schools. There appears to be a real need to increase the funds available to the State Land Board for this purpose of maintenance. So thank you very much for bringing the bill. However, after reading pages of Joint Budget Committee documents and sitting in committee, I still don't know if we need to double that budget or triple that budget or increase it 12-fold, which is what this bill does. It increases our spending authority from $75,000 a year to $1 million a year. And it comes out of the funds that normally would be going to schools. So that's why I was a no vote in committee, and that's why I thought I should explain my vote. Thank you.
Representative Vihil.
Thank you, Representative. And as I said, over the years, they've acquired many more resources, and they've got new property water rights they've had to acquire. They've had problems with the flooding in the past few years, which has damaged their infrastructure. However, just because it gives it the authority, doesn't mean that they're mandated to spend all that money. So with that, I ask for a yes vote.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I rise in favor of this bill. The Land Board has fallen behind in maintenance of their properties, and like Representative Vihil said, they don't have to spend all of it, but they absolutely need to catch up on some maintenance on this property. So this is, I rise in favor of this bill. Thank you.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And colleagues, I too rise in favor of this bill. However, and Representative Vihil made a good point. He said they expanded their holdings, they bought more property, they neglected what they had, and somehow the oversight of this body allowed that to happen. So for years, they only had a budget of $75,000 to do the upkeep. Now we're going to authorize $1 million to do the upkeep. My challenge to you, colleagues, is we allow them to upkeep the property. Let's not allow them to slip by with what I call poor stewardship of the property that they acquired. So let's make sure that they spend the money wisely. And I thank you, Representative Vihil, for bringing this, because it's much needed, but we do need much more supervision. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1245. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 1245 passes. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1256.
House Bill 1256, Representative Mitch Bush, also Senator Baumgartner, concerning the reclassification of Routt County to a Category 2 county for the purpose of establishing salaries of county officers.
Representative Mitch Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1256. There is no committee report.
To the bill, Representative Mitch Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill would move Routt County from its current status as a Category 3 to a Category 2. This move is based very much on data. The data collected and analyzed by the county show that the elected professionals, the assessor, the treasurer, the clerk, all have workloads that quantitatively look like those of a Cat 2 county. It also, their analysis also shows that qualitatively, Routt County is much more similar to the Cat 2 counties. I would urge an aye vote.
Is there any? Yes, Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I was looking over this bill and just wanted to ask a question, Representative Mitzbush. Is there a population threshold on this, or how do we come up with this?
Representative Mitch Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Brown, for that question. According to both statute and our Constitution, counties are categorized on population and on workload and other variables. Routt County's population is lower than some of those in Cat 2 and similar to those in Category 3. What's different is the workload. Ranging from the number of records filed to the number of abatements to the number of tax protests, and it's because it is a resort county and also an oil and gas county and also a coal county, and therefore there are a number of complexities, and the elected officials like the assessor, the treasurer, and the clerk have a much higher workload than any of those positions in the current Category 3 counties. And it would be right in the middle of the Category 2 counties in terms of that workload.
Representative Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To address Representative Brown's concerns, I've spent a little bit of time in Routt County, and in talking to those people, over 50% of the residences of there are second homes. So they don't count as population, but there's certainly a workload there. And, you know, we have a history in my district over the past few years. I know prior to me, Congressman Tipton, now Congressman Tipton, Montezuma County had requested a category change. In my district last year, Dolores County also did a change, and also Mineral County did. In my case in Dolores County, because of all the activity that's going on, the drilling activity by Kinder Morgan created a great deal more workload. So, you know, I'm going to let kind of the local decision. This is requested by Routt County, so I'm going to support Routt County's request. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1256? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1276. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 1256 passes. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1262.
House Bill 1262 by Representative Rosenthal, Senator Ballmer, concerning separate legal entities established by contract between two or more political subdivisions of the state in connection with clarifying the legal status and scope of powers of such an entity.
Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1262 and the committee report.
To the committee report, Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, the committee report deals with governance, and so that's why we amended the bill.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Committee report passes. To the bill, Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, this is a bipartisan bill that passed unanimously out of local government and has no opposition. It deals with allowing special districts to work together in order to issue tax-exempt bonds in order to comply with a new IRS regulations. And so it's a government efficiency bill, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1262? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1262. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 1262 passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Ooh, you heard the motion. Any substitute motions? None? Okay. Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Kohler, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to reports under consideration of the following attached bills, meeting second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bills 1214 amended, 1240 amended, 1245, 1256, 1262 amended, passed on second reading in order and gross, placed on the counter for third and final passage. Senate Bill 19 passed on second reading in order revised, placed on the counter for third and final passage. Senate Bill 103 laid over until March 16th, retaining its place on the calendar.
Representative Salazar. You have heard the motion. There are no amendments at the desk. The question before the House is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote.
At least.
Representative Becker J, Rupe, Thurlow, Tyler, Young. Representative Young. Close the machine. With 61 aye votes, no votes, 4 excused, and 0 absent, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Further announcements and introductions. Representative Primavera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Public Health and Human Services will meet in 10 minutes.
Any further announcements? Madam Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, over in the Senate, they are debating the resolution. So not debating, but making sure that first responders get the recognition they deserve. And so they have about 6 people left that are going to be talking on that resolution. So before we recess again and wait for the resolution to come over, I did want to make a couple of announcements. The Speaker asked me to announce that if you want to have a new interim committee this summer, there is a memo on your desk explaining how to do that, and you must have your request into Legislative Council or Legal Services by April 7th. Also, if you look at your calendar, Representative Joshi showed me early this morning that there is a typo in the calendar. So if you go to page 7, on the top of the page, it says Thursday, March 19th, and that should have actually been a continuation of the calendar for Tuesday, March 17th. IT's looking at the issue a little bit more, but I did just want to let you know that there was a typo. And thank you, Representative Joshi, for reading the calendar early and letting me know about 7:30 in the morning that there was a typo. So thanks so much.
Representative Primavera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I apologize. I thought we were done, so stay tuned, Public Health.
All right, we are going to take a brief recess as the majority. Oh, Representative Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. We just now have arriving up there students from the Bellevue School in Westminster, Colorado. If we can welcome them to the Capitol. Thank you for being here.
Welcome, students. All right, seeing no further announcements or introductions, the House will stand in brief recess. House will come back to order. Introduction, a message from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, the Senate has adopted and transmits herewith Senate Joint Resolution 13.
Introduction of resolutions.
Senate Joint Resolution 13 by Senators Sheffel and Garcia, also Representatives Lawrence and McCann, concerning the designation of First Responder Appreciation Day.
Mr. Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to suspend the rules for immediate consideration of SJR 13.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor of suspending the rules say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Rules be suspended. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of Senate Joint Resolution 13.
Senate Joint Resolution 13 by Senators Sheffel and Garcia, also Representatives Lawrence and McCann, concerning the designation of First Responder Appreciation Day.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I would move Senate Joint Resolution 15-013 and ask that it be read in its entirety.
Whereas first responders risk their own safety and personal property in the execution of their duties to protect the public on a daily basis. And whereas first responders are the first line of defense for the public against threats, both domestic and foreign. And whereas first responders stand at the ready to come to the aid of the citizens of the United States of America 24 hours a day. And whereas first responders are a vital part of our communities, not only standing ready to deal with emergencies, but also volunteering in our schools and community organizations. And whereas individuals, both career and volunteer, from police, fire, emergency medical services, search and rescue, and other organizations in the public safety sector, come together as a collective to aid the public in the event of an emergency. And whereas Colorado joins the following states in designating September 27th as First Responder Appreciation Day: Alabama, Alaska, Delaware, Illinois, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Missouri, Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Vermont, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. And whereas the Colorado General Assembly wishes to honor and support all first responders with an annual day of appreciation. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate of the 70th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that we, the members of the Colorado General Assembly, designate September 27, 2015 as First Responder Appreciation Day. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to Chief John Jackson, President, Colorado Association of Chiefs of Police; Chris Johnson, County Sheriffs of Colorado; Ron Gratone, Colorado State Firefighters Association; Mike Rogers, Colorado Professional Firefighters; Paul Cook, Division of Fire Prevention and Control, Colorado State Patrol; Scott Scholes, President, Emergency Medical Services Association of Colorado; Captain John Hahn, Colorado State Patrol; Jackie Kelly, Jefferson County Regional SWAT; Fred Wegner, Park County Sheriff; the I Love You Guys Foundation; Tim Gregg, Tanya Silloway, National EMS Memorial Service; George McCulloch, President, North Fork Volunteer Fire Department; Dave Robinson, President, Foothills Fire Department; Joe Baker, President, Mountain View Fire Department; Doug Lingo, Board of Directors, President, Wiggins Rural Fire Department; Eric Christensen, Fire Chief, Fort Morgan Fire Department; Tad Anderson, Chief, City of Brush Fire Department; Nicholas Metz, Chief of Police, City of Aurora; David Walcher, Arapahoe County Sheriff; Mike Garcia, Fire Chief, City of Aurora; Dr. Christopher Caldwell, Director of Emergency Medical Services, Denver Health Medical Center; Dr. Frank Lansville, Director of Emergency Medical Services, Aurora South Hospital; Tracy Lauzon, Director of Emergency Medical Services and Trauma Services, Aurora Medical Center; Patricia Tritt, Director of Emergency Medical Services, Swedish Medical Center, Denver; Bob Gann, Fire Chief, Wrist Canyon Volunteer Fire Department; Tom DeMint, Fire Chief, Poudre Fire Authority; John Hutto, Chief of Police, City of Fort Collins; Justin Smith, Larimer County Sheriff; Peter Carey, Chief of Police, City of Colorado Springs; Bill Elder, El Paso County Sheriff; Kimberly Culp, Executive Director, Larimer Emergency Telephone Authority; Matt Lewis, Mesa County Sheriff; Ken Watkins, President, Colorado State Fire Chiefs; Daniel Brennan, Chief of Police, City of Wheat Ridge; Shane Heap, Elbert County Sheriff; David Carr, Incident Commander, West Fork Fire Complex; Beth Lund, Great Basin Type 1 Incident Management Team Commander, West Fork Fire Complex; Gerald Durant, Fire Chief, Huerfano County; Greg Goodland, Public Information Officer, Royal Gorge Fire Department; Kyle Patterson, Spokesperson, Rocky Mountain National Park; James Englert, School Resource Officer, Deputy Sheriff, Arapahoe High School; James Mahler, Security Guard, Arapahoe High School; Jerry Morrell, Fire Chief, Lafayette Fire Department; Joe Pell, Sheriff, Boulder County; Craig Fugate, Administrator, Federal Emergency Management Agency; Chuck Russell, Deputy Incident Commander, Larimer County. Ben Pennyman, Spokesperson, Boulder County Office of Emergency Management. J.J. Hoffman, Fire Chief, City of Lyons. Shane Del Grosso, Boulder Incident Commander. Eric Marsh, Crew Supervisor, Granite Mountain Hot Shots. Ben Palm, Fire Chief, Yarnell Fire Department. Marty Whitmore, Public Information Officer, Ouray County. Lynn Padgett, Chairperson, Ouray County Board of County Commissioners. Michael Farr, Sergeant, Denver Police Department. Bellaman He, Trooper, Colorado State Patrol. Mike Butler, Public Safety Chief, Longmont Public Safety. David Hayes, Chief of Police, Louisville Police Department. John Wilson, Fire Chief, Louisville Fire Protection District. Rick Basher, Chief of Police, Lafayette Police Department. Mark Vasquez, Chief of Police, Erie Police Department. Mark Lawley, Fire Chief, Mountain View Fire Protection District. Christopher Riley, Fire Chief, Colorado Springs. Paul Woodward, President, Colorado Search and Rescue Board. AMR Pueblo, AMR Aurora, AMR Boulder, AMR Canyon City, AMR Denver, AMR Golden, AMR Longmont. Dale Villers, Fire Chief, Pueblo City Fire Department. Brian K. Caserta, Fire Chief, Pueblo West Fire Department. Eric Tade, Fire Chief, Denver Fire Department. Christopher P. Riley, Colorado Springs Fire Department. Mike Morgan, Fire Chief, Colorado River Fire Rescue. Mark Chris McMahon, AMR Pueblo. Leland Holdeman, AMR Colorado Springs. Officer John Adsit, Denver Police Department. Mike Palmer, Colorado Springs Police Department. Deputy Lee Ramsey, Gilpin County Sheriff's Department. Craig Hess, Aurora Police Department. Robert Little, Aurora Police Department. Sergeant Chris Hogue, Denver Police Department. Officer Dwayne Huddleston, Denver Police Department. And the families of fallen officers, Sergeant Sean Renfro, Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, and Sergeant David M. Baldwin, Jefferson County Sheriff's Office.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Please be seated, colleagues. And my co-sponsor, Representative Lawrence, had to be gone for a little bit, but I think she will be here shortly, so she will be joining us. But I think we all know the importance of first responders in our communities. We've all had some kind of an experience with those who respond in times of crisis and times of fear to help us either with our medical needs or if we are facing some sort of personal crisis, or if there is something, invasion of our home, if there are dangerous situations. We all appreciate those people who don't run the other direction. They run to the danger. And they are the ones that we count on every day, all day, to be there when we need them the most. So it is with a great deal of pleasure, and I'm very honored to sponsor our recognition of our first responders throughout our state. The idea of the First Responders Appreciation Day was initially formed by Tim Gregg. His daughter was one of the 7 hostages in the Platte Canyon Valley High School crisis that you remember back on September 27th, 2006. His daughter was released, but her friend Emily Keyes was killed during that horrible situation. During the time that Emily was being held hostage, she sent her parents these text messages. I love you guys, and I love you guys, K, with a question mark. Emily's family began the I Love You Guys Foundation in her honor, and shortly thereafter, Tim Gregg had the idea to honor these first responders who put their lives on the line every day to protect our communities. The I Love You Guys Foundation, founded by Ellen and John Michael Keyes, is dedicated to advancing student and school safety throughout the nation. Emily's kindness, spirit, fierce joy, and the dignity and grace shown by the Keyes family following the tragic event define the core of the I Love You Guys Foundation. And I have a few acknowledgments of various first responders that I would like to read, and if Representative Lawrence gets here, she also has some to read. As an example, Officer John Adsit. On December 3rd, 2014, Denver police officer John Adsit was seriously injured when he and 3 fellow officers were hit by a car while serving on bicycle patrol. Officer Adsit, a 9-year veteran of the Denver Police Department, sustained severe injuries. He spent several months in the hospital and went through 11 surgeries. And I think you may have seen a picture of him walking out of the hospital recently. He has made significant progress on his road to recovery. Today, we honor him and his fellow officers for their incredible sacrifice serving our communities. And he was here earlier in the Senate, but obviously I think I had to leave. I also want to honor Sergeant Sean Renfro from the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. Sergeant Sean Renfro gave his life serving his community on January 3rd, 2015. While off duty, Sergeant Renfro stopped to direct traffic around a multi-vehicle crash on Highway US 285 when a vehicle struck him. We honor his memory and the dedicated service to the people and the state of Colorado. I also want to mention Sergeant David Baldwin, who we heard about previously in our session. He was a U.S. Air Force veteran and a 27-year veteran of Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. He was struck and killed in the line of duty by a wrong-way driver on Highway 93. Sergeant Baldwin was a passionate teacher, community service, and friend. We are grateful for his service and his ultimate sacrifice, and that of his family. Also, Chief Eric Tade of the Denver Fire Department was acknowledged for his leadership with the FirstNet Colorado program. FirstNet, when deployed, will provide a wireless broadband data service capability to first responders and public safety professionals in the state. Because of his efforts, the fire department is playing a leading role in the governance for the establishment and oversight of this program in Colorado. I also want to mention some of the representatives of the Denver Police Department. Sergeant Chris Hogue helped a stranded motorist, actually gave the motorist a ride to an auto parts store after his car broke down on I-25. Officer Dwayne Huddleston helped take care of a child after his mother was taken to the ICU in a diabetic coma until she was well enough to see him. Commander William Nagel and Officer Florence Nagel helped an elderly gentleman buy gravel for his driveway when he discovered that the man would be fined since his property was not up to code. Officer Florence Nagel purchased a $300 credit card for a special needs student to ensure that teachers have money to purchase snacks. Corporal Joseph Sartan helped an at-risk blind female secure her finances in an independent account so she was able to be self-sufficient. Officer Joshua Vasconcelos purchased 2 bicycles with personal funds and delivered them anonymously on Christmas Day to 2 children who had had their bicycles stolen. Officer Tarl Spitzer helped a blind homeless man find shelter for a night after his friends dropped him off at a Wendy's and left him there. Deputy Lee Ramsey from the Gilpin County Sheriff's Department helped save the life of Nico, a Siberian Husky seriously injured in a home explosion in Black Hawk, Colorado. Officer Craig Hass and Robert Little from the Aurora Police Department helped an 86-year-old woman get home safely after a thief snatched her purse from a shopping cart. They were able to help her handle the problems that arose as a result of losing her purse. In the Arvada Police Department, Sergeant A.J. DeAndrea was recently awarded the Attorney General's Office Excellence in Law Enforcement Award. Oh, these are yours, aren't they? For establishing what has become a national standard for police tactical response in active shooter situations and a school safety protocol used across the country. Do you want to take over? I'll start here. Okay. And Representative Lawrence has now joined us.
Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Just to continue with some of the EMS officers who have contributed greatly across the state. Officer John Zubrinik helped a terminally ill woman get to the grocery store to buy her medication, bought food for her house, and connected her with the Food Bank of the Rockies and with an RTD dial-a-ride so she wouldn't go hungry or have to walk to get her medication. Chris Riley of the Colorado Springs Fire Department, we'd like to thank him for the leadership role that he played in the Broken Arrow mutual aid concept, planning and exercises held in 2014. These efforts were a key stepping stone in a statewide mutual aid program now being developed for the first responders across the state. Chief Mike Morgan, former president of the Colorado State Fire Chiefs, was honored with the John M. Buckman Leadership Award, which recognizes a chief officer of a volunteer or combination fire department that stands out on the local or regional level as a true professional who has demonstrated leadership, integrity, and outstanding values within the fire service. Star of Life Award recipients: Chris McMahon of American Medical Response of Pueblo for his work in organizing the Safety Jam community event, and Leland Holderman of AMR Colorado Springs for his donated time to Nighthawk Ranch, a camp for kids who are recovering from life-threatening illnesses. I lost my co-sponsor.
Representative McKeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. And I don't know if Representative Lawrence wants to make a statement. I already spoke in support of the resolution, but you might want to do that as well.
Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Members, I know that this has been a long day, but I think the work of EMS providers around the state is something that we all need to recognize and appreciate. You know, I think back to, it was 26 years ago that my dad passed away, and he had a heart attack in the middle of the night, and the EMS providers that responded so promptly and so considerately and helped my mom at that time, you know, we can never thank them enough. And for all the work that they do for everyone around this state, they are kind of the unsung heroes around here. And we tend to forget the kind of work that they do, as they are the first people on almost any scene. And the stories that we've heard today are people who have gone above and beyond that response time. They are dedicated to helping people in their communities, both on the job and off the job. And I hope that every day when we have the opportunity, we thank them.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. And I won't make this long, members, but we all know this, but I want to just say it again. And the fact is, we've heard over and over and over again how these folks put their lives on the line for us every day. And especially when you talk about natural disasters, that I think the thing that sometimes gets lost is these are folks that live in our communities. And when there is a natural disaster, they are also affected as well by that natural disaster. And I just think back to my little corner of the state where I'm at. We had a nasty tornado in Windsor, a lot of devastation that was there. We've had the High Park fire, we had the flooding. These first responders were also affected by the natural disaster itself. So on top of putting their lives on the line and going out and helping members in the community, they also have a lot of that happening to them. And there were several stories about, this first responder, guess what? Their house is on fire, it's burning down, their property is being destroyed, but guess what? They're out there helping somebody else. And they're putting the needs, their own personal needs aside, and they're going out and putting the needs of the community ahead of that. And I don't think that we can stress enough how awesome that is and how much we appreciate that. And so I just wanted to highlight that again and say thank you for what they do.
Representative Fields.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. I just want to say thank you to our first responders for your honor, for your courage, and for your sacrifice. I also want to thank the bill sponsors, McCann and Lawrence, for giving us an opportunity to hear and listen about the good work that our first responders are doing. When you think about that list of all of those officers, the good things that they do, we were able to kind of highlight and showcase the good that law enforcement is doing. And we don't hear enough about those kinds of events in reference to helping someone who got their purse snatched or whatever. I just want to say thank you for giving us that opportunity to showcase the good things that law enforcement are doing. Because when you call 911, it could happen at the middle of the night. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to just show up after getting a call, because you're really not sure the kind of danger that you might be confronted with when you're called to a scene. And they're so committed that they oftentimes are just doing what they're called to do. And I think that takes a tremendous amount of courage, but it also takes a tremendous amount of training. So when they rush to an incident, I'm quite sure they're prepared with the training, with that experience, and then the equipment. And when I think about the events of 9/11, that's what really shakes me. When I think about the events of what happened in New York City with those Twin Towers, when you had hundreds of first responders going into that building, it just lets you know the kind of dedication that these people have as it relates to their occupation. And so I just want to say thank you for being on the front line. It takes a very special person to do what you do, and I just want to say thank you.
Representative Buck.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem, and I rise in support of this resolution. Thank you for Representative McCain and Representative Lawrence. I could tell you countless stories of first responder support in the area I represent, and it's the Glen Haven, the Estes Park, the fires that we went through. I can't say enough my gratitude and appreciation for what you do. I think the arm's way that you put yourself in the middle of immediately, without question, without your own thinking of your own life. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so very much. Thanks for being here too.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, and I would be ungrateful if I did not come down here and talk about a time 34 years ago. I was in the mountains by myself, and a horse fell on me, knocked my hip out of place, and I could not go anywhere. But it was that helicopter ride that saved my life. Thank you.
Representative Sane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just want to say my appreciation as well. There's a lot of routine, I'm sure, that our first responders have, but not every day is routine. There's very few of us that have to make decisions that may result in life or death. And there's very few of us that have jobs that sometimes we may feel that way, but don't tax us to the very fiber of our being, like a first responder has. That duty, that job, and that commitment to save our lives in times where we've made a mistake or times that we're just caught in a very bad situation. So I wanted to thank our first responders because we live in a time that's made safe for us by others, not only in the past, but in the present.
Representative Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. You look very good up there.
And so do you, Representative Quorum.
Thank you. Members, I want to support this resolution, and I think it's very important that we show these men and women the respect that they deserve. I've had the unfortunate thing of being the first to a scene on several accidents, and I'm always amazed at how they get there, take over, and save lives. But I also want to talk about a personal situation. Excuse me. Several years ago, just before Christmas, my wife went to Grand Junction Christmas shopping and went to a Chinese restaurant. And her fortune cookie said, "Your future is very bright." And when she came home, our house was on fire. And we're about 7 miles out in the country. Went across the street to my folks' house, made the call, and they were there in 7 minutes, which is amazing. But the house was totally engulfed. And the chief said to my wife, "Is there anything of significant importance to you in this house?" She said, "My grandfather's mandolin. He went through a window in a burning fire and recovered that." That's amazing.
Representative Melton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, and I rise in support of this resolution. And I'd like to offer my personal appreciation to the first responders. As Representative McCann had mentioned, we all have incidences that happen in our communities, in our districts, that stand out. And for me, I have to say, when I was running for office in July of 2012, I woke up at 4 a.m. to calls that there had been a shooting at a theater just outside of my district. And we all know that now as the Aurora Theater shooting. And as distraught and as upset as I felt during that time, it was the first responders the stories of the first responders going in and helping the victims and organizing and really leading in such a way that not only brought peace to me, but brought peace to our city. And that's the reason why we so often talk about being Aurora strong. And that's because of those first responders and the strength that they displayed immediately after, seconds after hearing the word about what happened. And so, again, I rise in support and thank our first responders from the bottom of my heart.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I too rise in support of SJR 15013 and thank the sponsors for bringing it. I'm one of the few in the chamber probably that, well, I guess I'm the only one in the chamber that represents the district that Emily Keyes was from, and one of the few in the chamber that actually knew who she was. Oftentimes, we don't realize the decisions that have to be made by first responders. We talk about the actions of going in, of being the ones going in when the others are running out. But the decisions that have to be made by first responders, and they have to live with those decisions. That's amazing. If you can imagine what was going on there at the high school when Emily and her classmates were being held hostage, and Sheriff Fred had to decide, do we go in? What do we do? What's going to happen? And those are decisions that are life and death decisions that have to be made. And those folks have to live with those decisions. The things that our first responders see when they go in, when the rest of us just see the edited things on TV, they're the ones that have to go in and see the carnage and see the devastation that's there, and they have to live with that. And that's amazing. One of the things I usually say when I come up here on a resolution, and I'm going to say it today, what do you do now? What do we do now? We take this day to recognize our first responders, but what do we do now? Well, here's what I think. Wouldn't it be nice if the media would play the sound bites that we heard these ladies reading up here of the things that are done by first responders each and every day, instead of the sound bites of those few times that some first responder things don't go well for them, and that makes the news media, and we dwell on it and dwell on it and dwell on it. Wouldn't it be nice if we heard the good things each and every day that go on by our first responders? So I challenge you today, colleagues, I challenge you, push the media to recognize the good things that are done each and every day by our first responders on our behalf, because if they didn't do it, no one would. Thank you.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. So I would ask for the approval of Senate JR Resolution 15-013.
The motion before us is for the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 13. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Senate Joint Resolution 13 is adopted. Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that today's roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be listed as co-sponsors. Representative McCann, are you going to do introductions, Representative McCann? So I think at this point, let's go ahead and recess and do introductions. Then everyone can greet everyone after those introductions are made. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. We are very fortunate to have with us today Tim Gregg and his wife, Sherry Gregg. If they could stand up, please. So Mr. Gregg and his wife are the folks who started the First Responder Appreciation Day, and they have, Mr. Gregg is the executive director of that organization, First Responder Appreciation Day. So we really appreciate your being here and your initiative in starting this wonderful, wonderful tribute.
Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I would also like to introduce Grand County EMS Chief Ray Jennings.
If you would stand.
Castle Rock Fire and Rescue Department Battalion Chief Rich Martin. Central City Fire Department Chief Gary Allen.
Representative McCann.
Thank you. Cunningham Fire Protection District Chief Ira or Jerry Rhodes. And with him is Ralph Vickery from the Cunningham Fire Protection District. And the EMS Association of Colorado, Representative Howard Paul and the Alpine Rescue Team. I believe that's everyone that's with us here now. Some of them had to leave after the Senate presentation. So thank you all very much for attending and for what you do every day.
Great. Thank you, first responders, for being here this morning and for indulging us with your presence. We appreciate your service, and thank you for everything you do for all of us in Colorado. Representative Ryden.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, and I want to give a special shout out to one of my fire chiefs, Ira Jerry Rhodes, who was named Fire Chief of the Year last year in the Cunningham Fire District.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, and I'm just going to mention that he also testified yesterday down in front of the Health Committee, so we appreciate that and appreciate their participation in our legislative process, as did Chief Ray Jennings from the Grand County EMS. So thank you, gentlemen, again. Thanks.
Final announcements and introductions. Representative Primavera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Is now the time?
Now would be the time, Representative Primavera. Actually, the time was, yeah, never mind. Go ahead.
Public Health and Human Services will meet in 5 minutes downstairs.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Members, you're obviously free to go. We have a bill that we need to read across the desk and are going to do some calendar items now before closing the desk. So enjoy your weekend.
Do you want to read? Do you want to read? All right, members, so as you've heard, we're just reading some things across the desk. You're free to go. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that the following bills be calendared on Monday, March 16th for the second reading calendar. Senate Bill 30, House Bill 1073, House Bill 1246, Senate Bill 19, House Bill 1215, House Bill 1136, House Bill 1224, House Bill 1131, House Bill 1157, House Bill 1147, House Bill 1097, Senate Bill 97, and House Bill 1142.
Seeing no objection, those bills will be calendared as requested by the Majority Leader. Reports of committees of reference.
The Committee on Appropriations, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends following House Bill 1097 be amended as follows and asked someone to be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favor recommendation. House Bill 1131 be amended as follows and asked someone to be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favor recommendation. House Bill 1136 be amended as follows and asked someone to be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favor recommendation. House Bills 1147, 1157 amended as follows and asked someone to be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favor recommendation. House Bill 1215, 1224, Senate Bill 191 referred to the Committee of the Whole with favor recommendation. The Committee on Business Affairs and Labor. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends following House Bill 1246 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. The Committee on Finance. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends following House Bill 1142 be amended as follows and asked someone to be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1159 be amended as follows and asked someone to be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 97 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. The Committee on Health Insurance and Environment. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends following House Bill 1151 be postponed indefinitely. House Bill 1238 be amended as follows and asked someone to be referred to the Committee on Finance with favorable recommendation. The Committee on Judiciary, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends following House Bill 1073 be amended as follows and asked someone to be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1189 be postponed indefinitely. Senate Bill 30 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
Delivery of bills to the Governor.
Chief Clerk of the House of Representatives reports the following bills have been delivered to the Office of the Governor.
Report of the remainder of the report will be printed in the Journal.
Do you have it? I gave you the sheet.
Introduction of bills.
House Bill 1284 by Representatives Winter and Rupay, also Senators Grantham and Hodge, concerning measures to enhance program efficiency for shared photovoltaic energy generation facilities.
House Bill 1284 will be assigned to the Committee on Transportation and Energy. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar until Monday, March 16th.
Seeing no objection, the balance of the calendar will be laid over until Monday, March 16th. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that the House adjourn until 10 a.m. on Monday, March 16th.
Seeing no objection, the House will be adjourned until Monday, March 16th at 10 a.m. Don't forget the St. Patrick's Day Parade tomorrow morning in Denver.